Papers, please. Getting from one country to another usually takes a lot of paperwork, but sometimes it also takes a sense of humor, because those country lines don't always make sense. Here are 25 of the weirdest country borders in the world. Number 25. Diomede Islands. Russia and the United States, they've been allies and enemies over the centuries, even coming to the brink of nuclear war before. But the one thing that's always been consistent is that they've always been on different continents. That separation has helped to keep conflict at a low boil because they're not butting up in each other's territory directly, right? Except that it's not actually true. The two countries control territory only 2.4 miles away from each other in the middle of the Bering Strait. The Diomede Islands are not only controlled by different countries, they're on opposite sides of the international date line. And the history of how they got there spans several centuries. Since the Russians explored the Bering Strait in 1648, they controlled the islands, but when the US purchased Alaska in 1867, they used the islands as a convenient place to set the official boundary between the two countries, with Alaska and the tip of Siberia on the two ends of the Pacific Ocean. The two islands have taken very different paths. While Little Diomede, belonging to the United States, has a small native Inupiat population of a little over 100, Russia's Big Diomede was evacuated and now only has Russian troops as residents, making for a very intimidating neighbor. Sometimes getting across the border is a much bigger schlep than expected. Number 24. Jungholz, Austria. Borders are a little less important in much of Europe thanks to the Schengen Agreement, which eliminates the need for passports when crossing the border of a group of 26 countries in the European Union. The Schengen area has a total of 420 million people, and life is easier for the people who can just hop over the border, and in one case save themselves a lot of trouble. If you'd like to head to Jungholz, a village in the Austrian Strait of Tyrol, you'll notice one very odd thing. The town is completely isolated from the rest of Austria, without a single road connection to the rest of the country, but not from other countries. The region is a tiny annex in the northwest of Austria sticking out into Germany, and to travel to the rest of Austria you'd have to take a lengthy hike over the mountains. But thanks to the lack of bureaucracy, tourists have another choice. They can get in their car, enter Germany, and take a leisurely drive into that country and then get back into Austria. This gives the region an odd in-between vibe, with the locals using the German mark as their currency instead of the Austrian shilling up until the euro was introduced. But what about a town that held out even as the borders changed around it? Number 23. Livia, Spain. The town of Livia is a sleepy Spanish village with a population of just under 1,600. It's part of the region of Catalonia, which is advocating for independence, but there's one unique thing about it. It's in France. This strange little enclave exists about a mile from the mainland border of France and Spain, but is recognized by both countries as part of the Iberian nation. And the origins of this go back over 500 years. When the Treaty of Pyrenees expanded France's territory, Livia was excluded because it was technically considered a town and not a village. And that led to some awkward situations over the years. Livia became a flashpoint in the Spanish Civil War, when its location in France could have made it a haven for opponents of the Franco regime. But when France recognized Franco's victory, it became business as usual, although residents required special passes to get through the French corridor to the rest of Spain. But since then, it's been largely smooth sailing. A neutral road allowed residents of Livia to head to Spain, and the Schengen Agreement made it all moot. But now, with Catalonia voting for independence in 2017, it's possible that the site could become a source of conflict again. But some border markings are much smaller. Number 22. Hotel Arbès, Switzerland, France. The tiny village of La Queue doesn't look like much, having only around 1,200 people, but it's been a major source of conflict between France and Switzerland due to its location. Napoleon annexed it, Switzerland later had it returned, then France wanted it back. A treaty in 1862 exchanged some territory to essentially cut the village in half, leaving all the buildings undisturbed, and one enterprising businessman had a brainstorm. He bought a building containing a grocery store and a pub that would now be right across the border, and he built perhaps the most unique hotel in the world. The Hotel Arbès exists between two countries, meaning you can be sleeping with your head in France and your legs in Switzerland. It's become a huge tourist attraction, with the dining room being split as well. No doubt a lot of kids ask their parents to pass the potatoes over to Switzerland from France. In a clever touch, in the bed in the honeymoon suite is placed to be perfectly divided between the two countries. That means if the sweethearts have a fight, it's never been easier to storm off to another country to cool down. Now, are you ready to explore one of the world's most secure libraries? Number 21. Haskell Free Library in Opera House, Canada, USA. Not every country's borders are as open as Europe's, even if the countries are friendly. Traveling to the US and Canada means you better be prepared to show your papers and have your belongings searched. But at one place in Vermont and Quebec, the two countries meet in the most neutral of locations, a library. A Victorian-era building built in 1904, it doubles as an opera house and was built as a binational project. But due to a locational quirk, the opera seats are on the US side and the library books and opera stage are in Canada. But getting there is more complicated than the average library. The door is in the United States, which means Canadian visitors have to use a special route around the building to get there from Canada. Before you enter, it's checked which country you're from, and the authorities make sure you get back where you're supposed to be when you're done. A large black line marks the border inside, but when you're finally in the facility, you can travel freely between the two countries. Run jointly between the two nations, it even briefly became a site for international family reunions in 2017 to avoid US travel restrictions. Sometimes, which country you wind up in is a split-second judgment call. Number 20. Musandam Governorate, Oman. In the Arabian Peninsula, oil is king. The region is largely ruled by powerful families who combine monarchies with massive business empires. But in the country of Oman, one little enclave stands out from the rest because most of it exists in the neighboring United Arab Emirates. That means that the only way to reach this region of Oman is through another country, usually with a ferry service. It became a part of Oman around the time the UAE became a country, and the residents supported becoming part of the oil-rich country instead of the new UAE. After all, what's going to become of the UAE, right? Probably nothing. Needless to say, fortunes have changed since then. Today, the UAE has become one of the richest countries in the world. People jet there from all over the world for business and recreation. Meanwhile, the Musandam Governorate, the population of 49,000, lives along a rugged coastline. While the peninsula isn't particularly lively, it's critical to the government of Oman because it provides them easier access to the Strait of Hormuz. Want to travel to France? On which continent? Number 19. New Caledonia, France. It's a long flight to Australia from most places, but would you believe it only takes 3 hours to get from Sydney back to a European country? No, we're not putting you on a new supersonic jet, but there is one piece of France right off the coast of the island of New Caledonia. But this border didn't get there by accident. It happened the way most borders shifted for most of history, through old-fashioned colonialism. It was located by European explorer James Cook in 1774 and given its current name, and the French took it over in 1853. So, how have they been holding on to it this whole time? When nickel was found on the island, France consolidated their control. Miners were brought in, the native population was displaced, and the island became a military base in World War II. It would later be named a French overseas territory with a current population of 271,000, all being French citizens, whether they want to be or not. While a majority of residents have voted to remain part of France, this number is dwindling and tensions are high. But hey, at least Australians have a decent place to get a croissant. But did you know the French also have a beachhead on another continent? Number 18. French Guiana, South America. Many European countries have territories around the world, but few are as big as French Guiana, which frequently gets mistaken for a South American country. Nestled next to Guyana and Suriname in the north of Brazil, it's over a seventh the size of France proper and is the European Union's largest territory. With almost 300,000 people, it's covered by a thick rainforest and dominated by a diverse mix of immigrant populations. If you want to visit the largest national park in the European Union, book a trip to French Guiana. And it's been in this strange situation for a long time. France colonized the area starting in the 16th century and fell back on it once it was largely ousted from North America. While it has an increasing number of immigrants from the Caribbean, the region struggles with poverty due to poor soil quality and a lack of manufacturing. It's heavily influenced by Creole culture, and while some activists advocate for an end to French colonialization, it's unlikely France will be giving up this giant outpost to the south anytime soon. But some outposts are far more troublesome than others. Number 17. The Falkland Islands, United Kingdom. Head to the southernmost part of South America and you'll find Tierra del Fuego. Head about 384 miles east and you'll find the Falkland Islands, or you'll find Las Malvinas, depending on who you ask. And the odds are whoever you ask will be very angry, because this small island group of less than 3,400 people is near Argentina. But it's under the rule of the United Kingdom, and both sides feel very strongly about their claim. But how it got there is a complex story. A complex series of expeditions by Britain, France, and Spain in the 18th century eventually led to a conflict between Spain and Britain. While Spain ruled it for several decades, they eventually left due to pressing domestic issues, and the islands were later claimed by Argentina, only for Britain to claim it had an existing right to the islands. Most of the residents of the island today are British and fiercely loyal to their crown, and an Argentine invasion in the 1980s led to a short and bloody war between Argentina and the UK. While the conflict over Britain's far-flung southern outpost has cooled down, both sides are no closer to an agreement. Let's head back to Europe. for a very strange swim. Number 16. Lake Constance. By all accounts, Lake Constance is a pretty standard body of water, albeit a huge one. It's one of the largest bodies of water in mainland Europe and is connected to massive rivers including the Rhine at the base of the Alps. But Lake Constance is actually 3 connected bodies of water, and each of the 3 comes from a different country. This humble lake is where Austria, Switzerland, and Germany meet, and a distracted swimmer in an inner tube could easily wake up in another country. But don't let that distract you from a nice day on the water. While most places, drifting to another country would be a disaster, in Lake Constance it's no big deal. All 3 countries are part of the European Union and allow free movement between their borders. Additionally, all 3 of the nations speak German as one of their official languages, so any lost tourist can probably converse and find out exactly where that river's taken them. This strange border has led Lake Constance to becoming a hub for cultural activities and festivals. But we're not done with Europe's weird borders yet. Number 15. Bijlmermeer, Belgium, Netherlands. Head to the north part of Belgium, and you'll find a village of around 2,700 people with one thing setting it apart. You can take a wrong turn down the street and wind up in the Netherlands. In fact, this Belgian village exists almost entirely within its neighbor, but not in one piece. While the largest part of the village is on the border with Belgium, there are also 20 Belgian enclaves within the Netherlands, and 7 of those Belgian enclaves have Dutch enclaves within them. So how the heck does anyone keep this straight? Well, good thing is they don't really need to. The Schengen Treaty means borders are just random lines in most circumstances, and tourists can freely wander from one to another. But language and cultural barriers do still exist, and the origins of the town's strange status dates back to medieval treaties and weren't settled until 1843. This caused complications in the First World War when the German army had to be careful not to violate the Netherlands' neutrality. Today, to know where you are, you gotta look down. Streets are often painted with the country's flag. How do you maintain a strange border? Sometimes the answer is constant vigilance. Number 14. Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera, Spain. It doesn't look like much. A small rocky island off the Moroccan shore, a small sand bridge connects it to the mainland, and there isn't much on the island besides a large fort. The island isn't regularly inhabited, but Spain has a constant military delegation on the island to make sure no one takes it over. Because this is a rare remaining outpost of Europe in Africa, and Spain has held it for hundreds of years. In fact, it was a frequent source of conflict between Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and the Ottoman Empire over the centuries. And today, Spain holds onto it with an iron grip. The island is governed directly by Spain, and the easiest way to reach it is by helicopter. It might be possible to walk to it, but the land is unstable and a tidal surge could endanger anyone who tries. Much like Argentina and the Falklands, it's a point of pride for Morocco, and they haven't given up trying to reclaim it. They last lived there regularly in 1564 when the Ottoman Sultan handed it over to the Spaniards, but as recently as 2012, a group of rebels tried to seize the fort and were driven out by both Spaniards and the Moroccan government. Number 13. Melilla in Ceuta, Spain. Totaling more than 170,000 residents on the Morocco-Spain border, these 2 cities exist in a strange no-man's land between Africa and the European Union. The outposts used to be part of the various Muslim empires that ruled North Africa, but were captured by Spain and Portugal in the 1400s. While they briefly were taken back by an African kingdom in 1554, that only lasted about 10 years, and they've remained in Spanish hands ever since. So what's it like living in a Spanish city in Morocco? Pretty normal, except for that huge border fence. The 2 cities are well protected not just to keep a firm separation between Morocco and Spanish territory, but to keep out would-be migrants. After all, if someone looking to get into the European Union was to make it into Melilla or Ceuta, they could then enter into mainland Europe with very little red tape. While Morocco has largely accepted Spain's presence on their land, they opened the border fence in 2021 during a diplomatic crisis, and more than 6,000 migrants quickly made their way into Spanish land. Our next border was created due to conflict over Iraq. Number 12. Gibraltar, United Kingdom. As if the territorial issues between Spain and Morocco aren't enough, Britain's gotten involved to laying claim to a small strip of land at the southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula. It's only about 2.6 square miles and is mostly dominated by the massive Rock of Gibraltar, but at the base is a crowded town of 32,000 native Gibraltarians. It's been in British hands since 1713 and is key to Britain's interest because it controls the narrow access point to the Mediterranean Sea. But Spain hasn't given up their claim yet. While Spain believes Gibraltar to be its territory, the 2 countries are allies, and the movement to return it to Spain hasn't taken off. Referendums to turn Gibraltar over to Spain or to allow shared control have failed miserably at the ballot box. But this became a much more complicated issue when the UK left the European Union in 2020 and took Gibraltar with it. Negotiations are ongoing to allow freer movement between its population and mainland Europe, which is right next door. Now let's head over to North America for some very odd directions. Number 11. The Northwest Angle. Canada's to the north, right? But if you're in Minnesota, there's one place where America pokes up into its northern neighbor, like a wacky sitcom character popping in for a visit. In Lake of the Woods County, Minnesota, there's this tiny region that's considered part of the U.S. because, well, someone messed up. When negotiations over the U.S.-Canada border were ongoing in the late 1700s, surveyors misunderstood the source of the Mississippi River and included a chunk of land well to the north of their survey of U.S. land. And the result is some very strange features. Getting to the area from the rest of Minnesota involves either crossing the nearby Lake of the Woods by boat or ice road in winter, or by taking a highway, crossing over into Canada, and then crossing back into the U.S. The biggest sticking point of relations over the little area is fishing rights, and those tensions got bad enough that residents argued for joining Canada. But another group got involved, the local Red Lake Indian Reservation, which controls most of the land. After that, both sides backed down and compromised on fishing rights. But it's not the weirdest point of the US-Canada border. Number 10. Point Roberts, USA, Canada. Let's head to the Pacific Ocean, where the US and Canada meet at the junction of Washington State and British Columbia. But to get to the actual northernmost point, you'll have to head over to an inlet, navigate south, turn north, find a spot of land exactly at the 49th parallel, the border location agreed on to be the US-Canada border in 1846 with the Orkin Treaty. With a population of around 1,200 people, this sleepy little town seems like a normal Pacific Northwest haven, except for it being at the hub of two countries. That's made it a popular tourist destination, with Canadians from the West visiting for cheap US goods. But while Point Roberts is idyllic, it's also very isolated. It requires 2 border crossings to get there from the US, and amenities in the town are limited. They have exactly 1 grocery store. But it being so hard to get in has led to some advantages, like low crime, with it being nicknamed the best gated community in the US. Other complicated borders, though, come with much more conflict. Number 9. Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan, Armenia. How does a mountainous region full of forests within the borders of Azerbaijan become an international flashpoint when the residents decide that they'd rather be independent? It all comes back to the thorny history of the former USSR in Asia, when they absorbed a mass group of territories. When those countries became independent in the early 1990s, a lot of issues were left unresolved, including the status of this region of almost 150,000 people. There have been conflicts for several decades, with a war breaking out almost immediately after the collapse of the USSR and ending in 1994, with Azerbaijan taking control of the region. While a group calling itself the Republic of Artsakh has declared independence, the world has not recognized this claim yet, and a new brutal war broke out in 2020 between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the region. The borders of Azerbaijan and Armenia are complex, to put it lightly, and they aren't getting any simpler. It's not the only region where conflict led to some odd lines. Number 8. India-Bangladesh border. When India and Pakistan gained independence in the 1940s, there was a mass population transfer that caused a lot of chaos and tragedy. When Bangladesh followed soon after, many of the leaders were determined not to repeat the same mistake, no matter how weird things got. The India and Bangladesh borders were designed to prevent displacement and keep villages intact, which has led to a lot of spillover between heavily Hindu India and majority Muslim Bangladesh. There are currently 102 enclaves of Indian territory within Bangladesh and 71 Bangladeshi enclaves within India, and several have counter-enclaves within them. With over 50,000 people in these little towns, maintaining the border was complicated until 2015, when a land agreement was ratified, transferring most of the enclaves over to the countries they were in, allowing the residents to stay. Today, only one enclave remains, Dahagram Angarpota in India, containing 17,000 holdouts. And more often than not, when territorial conflicts erupt, it's the people in the middle who get screwed. Number 7. Voruk, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. The borders in Central Asia are rather strange, largely caused by the carving of borders during Stalin's era, and the ethnic lines never being clear. But for the population of 30,000 living in Voruk, Tajikistan, things are especially odd, because they're located firmly in Kyrgyzstan. Tensions run high in the region, with the territory being very isolated and resources like farmland and water being limited. Both countries want to keep control of the land, which leads to an unfortunate situation for the residents. They really can't leave, and Tajikistan doesn't make it easy for them to get back to the main part of the country. If they leave, Kyrgyzstan will see an opportunity and take over the city. A dispute over a road bypassing the enclave led to a massive brawl with hundreds of residents in 2013, and border skirmishes happen on a regular basis. Hard to believe one of Stalin's great ideas didn't work out, right? And speaking of Russia, number 6, Kaliningrad, Poland, Russia. Where does Russia put a city? Wherever the largest country in the world wants to put one, including a whopping 300 miles away from the rest of Russia in Poland. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union controlled most of Eastern Europe through puppet regimes, and while the countries were normally independent, they deferred to Soviet military and had their territory taken for outposts regularly. That led to the creation of Kaliningrad, a massive Soviet enclave of close to 500,000 people. When the Soviet Union fell, Poland became independent, but Kaliningrad was still Russian, and Poland didn't have the power to make an even weakened Russia give it up. It provides Russia a vital port in the Black Sea, where all of Russia's other access points are in the frozen north. With all the nations bordering the enclave being members of NATO, the presence of the city is causing increased tensions and could become a front in a future war. Outposts of a country within another country? How about an entire country within another country? Number 5, San Marino. Covering just 24 square miles, the country of San Marino exists entirely within the borders of Italy, on the northeastern side of the Apennine Mountains. But it's not some new city-state that gained independence from a rebellion recently. It's actually older than an independent Italy and claims to be the oldest constitutional republic in the world. It's an odd place, having joint heads of states elected by a legislature, and is a hub of tourism and finance. One of the wealthiest countries in the world, it maintains a small but strong military and holds to neutrality, avoiding getting involved in the world wars. Although it was invaded during World War II and later liberated by the Allies, it has a cooperative agreement with Italy that regulates some economic activities in exchange for an annual stipend of some goods Italy has a monopoly on. And despite all its similarities with the larger country next door, both sides seem pretty happy with the arrangement. But it's not even the smallest independent country within Italy. Number 4, Vatican City. Probably the only country in the world with 100% of population of one religion. Vatican City is more of a home base for the Roman Catholic Church than a country. Its head of state is the Pope, and it only has a population of under 1,000. Existing over only 121 acres, it's not only the smallest country in the world, it's a fraction of most cities. Located on the western coast of Italy, it's considered an observer state according to the United Nations. As it exists primarily as a religious state and has little to no economy of its own, it functions largely as a part of Italy but governs its own affairs. Like with San Marino, everyone is mostly happy with this arrangement. Italy is primarily a Catholic country, and having the Pope's home base there is considered an honor. And the people in the country are more than happy to give them a wide berth and let the cardinals run things as they see fit. These are more city-states, but one larger country exists entirely within another. Number 3, Lesotho, South Africa border. Located within the massive country of South Africa is what looks like a small oval region. This is the country of Lesotho, a region of over 2 million people almost entirely made up of the native Basotho people. So how did it wind up separate from South Africa? You guessed it, colonialism. While South Africa was occupied by the British until they gained independence in 1961, Lesotho was still in British hands. They declared independence 5 years later and had their own distinct culture, so they weren't interested in reuniting. It's a landlocked country, but landlocked by only one country. For those who enter the region from South Africa, they'll find a stunning country known for waterfalls and ski resorts. While its relations with South Africa are normalized today, during the apartheid era they supported the black activists and even gave them some refuge in their enclave nation. But north in Africa, border fans will find one of the most fascinating locations anywhere. Number 2, the Kazungula Quadrupoint. Kazungula is a small town in Zambia, not notable in any way except for its location on the north bank of the Zambezi River. That makes it one of the very few spots in the world where 4 countries' borders come up against each other. While not technically a true quadrupoint, it's actually 2 different tri-points, it still provides easy access between Zambia, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. Botswana is the odd man out in this riverbank meeting of nations, having less than 500 feet of access between Namibia and Zimbabwe. The geographic quirk has elevated the small town to one of the most important in Africa, as they try to build infrastructure to make the borders clearer and navigate conflicts between the 4 countries. While most of the people living in the area are humble fishermen and traders, the site has become a major trade route, as well as a popular site for tourists to take photos of them trying to stand in multiple countries. And speaking of water conflicts, this final strange border is a tale of the haves and the have-nots. Number 1, Neum, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina. You're a resident of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and you just like to go for a swim. Let's head to the beach. Easy, right? Not quite, because Croatia is hoarding all the beach real estate. It's another one of those border conflicts that comes out of the fall of communism in the early 90s. As the ethnic hodgepodge of Yugoslavia split up into several smaller countries, conflicts started over where borders should be drawn between ethnic groups. This led to a strange situation of Croatia's borders leaving Bosnia and Herzegovina almost entirely landlocked by a long strip of land. But is there any hope for Bosnian beachgoers? As it turns out, there is. Bosnia and Herzegovina actually does have one tiny strip of beachfront territory in the municipality of Neum, giving them about 12 miles of coastline. But this has caused conflicts of its own, as it separates Croatia's own waterfront and causes issues getting goods from one part of the country to another. The two countries have never had warm relations, and this little municipality of 4,600 people is right in the middle of a possible flashpoint. A treaty to allow commercial activity through Neum for both countries was hashed out, but remains unimplemented, meaning both countries will continue to enjoy fun in the sun with a side of global conflict. Want to know more about modern border conflicts? Check out insane ways people cross the Mexican-American border illegally, or watch this video instead.